And take it away, Graham. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Gabby. It's always nice to talk to all of our friends and colleagues and peers at CAP because you know, everybody's doing the good work out there, and it's always fun to share our stories, what we've learned, and to try to help you avoid any of the pitfalls and hopefully scale what we're doing and apply it elsewhere in the GTA in Ontario. And I was really pleased to see the land acknowledgement and that book recommendation. I think I'm going to have to go find that. And, you know, maybe another topic one day is Markham's partnership with the Yabatong First Nation, which is Fort Hope, which is 360 kilometers north of Thunder Bay. And we're working with them. I went for my second trip there a couple of weeks back, actually, to help them with some green and inclusive community building applications. But anyway, that's a really unique project, and I think it's something I'd like to see other municipalities pick up, and I'd be happy to share that story another day. Today, we're here to talk about Mattamy Springwater Geo-Exchange system. This has been a pretty fun project. It's been very challenging. We learned a lot. It tested everything in our systems. But before I get going, I just want to recognize, I think I see some Team Markham people here. So Jennifer Wong, always, you know, just a great colleague and team member supporting this project and helping me stay organized, as well as leading a number of our initiatives. Lisa Young on Jen's team. We recently drafted Tony Iacobelli to our policy planning group. So welcome, Tony. I'm really pleased to have an ally in planning with respect to sustainability. I also see Peter Ronson from Markham District Energy, and one of our members of the community, Peter Mysick in Unionville Residents Association. I hope I've gotten all of my friends in Markham recognized before I get rolling. You know, we work in a political environment, so we have to recognize who's here. Okay, so I'll give you an overview of the Springwater Geo-Exchange system, some of the options that we evaluated. We'll talk about project agreements, and I know right-of-way is a big question, so I got way deep into right-of-way than I ever thought I would, so I'm happy to talk about that. Some of our reflections, what we learned, next steps, and then a little bit of a peek on what is the Powerhouse hybrid project that we did with Alectra, Enbridge, and Ryerson, and Jen Wong led that one. I think I'm gonna have to take my jacket off because I'm gonna get excited here. So the objective with this project was to construct a 310 home neighborhood to be heated and cooled using underground geo-exchange system to build a low carbon community, to see if it could be done. And, you know, Mattamy and Enwave approached us. In fact, Mattamy started with us and then brought Enwave on. We were lucky enough that they thought that if they could make it go in Markham, maybe they could make it go elsewhere. And we were in the right place, the right time, and have the right organizational and strategic initiatives and ability in the organization to make it happen. We made it happen. It was not easy, as I said, but the objective was a community-wide vertical loop geo-exchange system. It should reduce each home's emissions by about 1,200 tons of CO2. I think that sits around 80% below Ontario Building Code, each home. And this is a key objective, was to be market competitive over a total cost of ownership, like a 25-year timeline, to have the geo-exchange system be competitive with what a traditional system with natural gas and, you know, forced air system would be. So, you know, that was a key thing. We didn't want it to be more expensive. We didn't want it to be premium. And this was important to Enwave and Mattamy to kind of start to prove this as a concept that it could be built that way. Our partners, of course, were Mattamy Homes Canada, Enwave Energy Corporation, and the Atmospheric Fund. And TAF was they came on early. They gave us funding, I think around 200 and I always forget the number, Jen, $230,000, something like that for the front end engineering and design. And it really gave us a shot in the arm on this project. It was a strong vote of confidence that we had something going here that could be successful. It allowed us to all gel together to come and really move this forward. And so that initial early support from TAF really helped us move this along. And I'm grateful for their continued support, and of course for Jen's continued management of the relationship with TAF and Enwave and Mattamy. So this is what the project looks like. It is part of our North District, or what we called our future urban area, the FUA. It's at Elgin Mills and west of Warden, and it's adjacent to an existing community. It's adjacent to a Hydro One transmission line, and it sits on a 64-acre site. It's on 2 land parcels, 2 former farms. So it's a greenfield site. And it is currently being only developed for phase 1. And I'll talk a little bit about what the next steps for this project might be with respect to geo later on in the presentation. Here's a nice photo of a rendering of what it would look like. Stormwater management pond. And then, of course, trying to remember the creek name, but there's also some environmentally significant wetlands that are adjacent to the site that we had to work around in management. So this project did get going, it's all 4 years now, and they are in construction. But we started in 2017 with the original discussions with Mattamy and Enwave, where they proposed it to us. In 2018, we put together a joint release after setting a comfort letter or a letter of intent to put it together. We did a few presentations in 2019 to share the stories and what we learned so far in the early stages. 2020 was where the real work hit the road, where the rubber hit the road, in developing the municipal access agreement between Enwave and the city. And that is the key agreement that defined everything on how this utility works with us in our right-of-way, what the rules are, fees, everything like that. So I'll unpack that a little bit later, and I'll talk about the negotiations as well. In 2021, Mattamy launched their sales center and the marketing for the Geo-Exchange technology and homes to the public. I understand that they are 80 to 90% sold now, and their phases are getting bought up as they go. The system, the Geo-Exchange, has been neutral to semi-positive, so it hasn't taken away from anybody making decisions to buy into this this community. However, I think, as we all know, because real estate is a sport and a conversation topic in the GTA, that the market is very strong. So it's good news that it hasn't had any negative effects with respect to sales of this quite nice community that Mattamy is developing. So we have some policy frameworks that we're working within. One is Getting to Zero, which is our municipal energy plan that was endorsed by council in 2018 with the goal of net zero energy emissions by 2050. In 2018, that was advanced, and now everybody's caught up, and some people like Toronto are really contemplating going by 2040. So it's really great to see the progression with respect to and the adoption of these targets. Of course, our official plan, because this was largely a planning exercise, our official plan from 2014 guides this. And we did a lot of consultation and work with the TRCA. Their staff were extremely helpful. So some of the Living City policies from the TRCA's 2014 plan also informed our progress. So our context is, currently we have about 360,000 people, and I think everybody knows, but Markham is north of Steeles and east of Yonge. We're in York region. We're the slightly larger community of the 9 municipalities in York region with 360,000 residents, and we're fast growing. So we're expecting by 2031, 440,000 residents. As we mentioned, net zero by 2050 is our objective, and we have a fairly open and flexible policy framework. I think a lot of municipalities do. Our future urban area, where this development was happening, was 1,300 hectares. It's 4 concession blocks, where we expect to have 12,000 residential units, 38,000 people, and 19,000 jobs. And the neat thing about having Mattamy in this was that Mattamy was at the forefront of objectives with respect to sustainability and emissions. And they pulled the other developers, because there's a large slate of developers that are working in that development area in our North District or our future urban area, who we also, at the same time, were negotiating a community energy plan with. And our community energy plan, the end results were 8% performance above building code. And we did this through negotiation with them. And largely that's around higher efficiency building envelope. So better windows, tighter envelope, and higher levels of insulation. We went after that because we understood, and my team also constructs the city buildings, city facilities. We understood that you don't really open up walls or change windows out as much as you might change out, say, your furnace, your air conditioner, or your hot water heater or other appliances. So we wanted to make sure that these buildings were moving towards what we call net zero ready, and a high performance building envelope takes you a step towards that. So we had these two kind of ends. We had Mattamy at the far end, and we had the other development partners that were a little reluctant, unsure, not as nimble as Mattamy because of the way that they're structured, but they were pulled along by Mattamy's objectives, which really I think was quite helpful for us. And then Mattamy also told us that the objectives that we had with respect to the community energy plan helped them support their initiative with respect to doing high efficiency buildings in order to lower the Geo-Exchange system costs, because it's a balance, right, between how high performance your building is and then how much you have to build for your infrastructure in order to supply the necessary heating and cooling. Of course, we had strong political will and senior level support to innovate and battle climate change. You know, the mayor and the CAO, our commissioner of corporate services are all very strong partners and give us a lot of rope to hang ourselves, and thankfully we haven't yet. But it resulted in our ability to partner with Mattamy and Enwave and bring TAF into this project to make it a reality. And this is just what our current emissions split was in 2011. I think like a lot of municipalities were struggling to keep it updated. The data flow from the utilities can be a challenge, and I think that CAP is working on that. So do continue that, because you know, good information, good reporting is important, because if you can't manage it or you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So the design concepts, 3 concepts were looked at: a traditional vertical loop that goes down quite deep, a horizontal loop system, so this linky coil, and then also because there is that small creek, they looked at an open loop Geo-Exchange system that would be drawing out groundwater and then perhaps releasing it into the creek to help handle temperature regulation for fish and things like that, red side days. What we ended up settling on was the fairly traditional vertical loop system. And there's 16 boreholes per volt. I think there's 8 to 10 vaults. So there's a number of boreholes throughout this community, and it's all within the right of way, making a very complicated spaghetti of piping. And we'll talk about that in the right of way discussion. So this is a bit of an exaggerated view of what it would look like. And if I learned a new trick this morning. Let's see, back. No, I'm not going to get it. Someone showed us how to use the red pointer, but nonetheless, this is early concept 3D rendering that was done. This is the ambient pipe that flows throughout the community. So it's a single pipe system, not a 4-pipe system like a traditional district energy system. And it has a number of these chambers located throughout where they pull in the vertical loops that go down. Oh, you're going to test me on this, probably over 100 meters deep into the ground, like a traditional system or a traditional Geo-Exchange system would be, all brought together and then put into this ambient pipe. This ambient pipe then supplies about 18-degree water, and you can see that there are laterals to and from the homes, and in each home would be a heat pump that would do the additional temperature modification as necessary to raise it up for heating or to bring it down for cooling supply via a forced air system into the home. I think 250 meters. Oh my goodness. There's a lot of data to remember on this. I think I took us through everything else that we've talked about here. So with respect to right-of-way infrastructure coordination, we spent a lot of time on this, and we did some very early engineering, and that's where the TAF funding came in, is to have this discussion and have these early conversations before the actual engineering for the development happened, before all the planning processes happened. We did a lot of this work early on so that when it did move into our planning and engineering processes, most of this, everybody was aware of what was happening, and everybody knew what to expect. And some of the early discussions on kind of spacing and sizing and things like that were already had. So it was a bit easier to move through. And that's a really key point that I think that everyone should take back, is that we did some preliminary work before moving this into our planning and development processes. So it was within the right of way, amidst all of our other infrastructure that's there. I liken this to kind of asking an only child to share their toys with a sibling or with a cousin, because our colleagues in other departments, they're used to having the right of way to themselves. Typically, the gas and electrical utilities are to the outside. So this was in the right of way. It's under the roadway, and it's cheek by jowl with the 1.5 to 2 meter spacing from our water, our wastewater, and our stormwater infrastructure. So we had to figure out how to make all of that work. So the size, location of the module fields, vault locations, everything had to be really detailed engineering, even to like where the culverts were and how they came across. But we made it through. The engineering team that Enwave and Mattamy had was top notch. So it worked okay. Here's what the cross section ended up looking like. And I think the purple is our infrastructure that we're talking about. Jen, give me a thumbs up on that. Is that right? Yeah. I haven't looked at this in a while. Nonetheless, this is our standard, low development density. Thank you, Jen. Infrastructure. You can see how it is in there in the right of way. We've got our piping, we've got our returns, also our tree planting. We're happy to share this if you want to send your engineering people to ask for more questions. So we looked at the best opportunities for infrastructure using our public spaces. We looked at parks, we looked at some of the natural space, what the performance would be, the long-term maintenance. If we put it in the park, what if we change the use of the park? What about tree plantings, the locating of it within the private lands? Could we put it in the back? We looked at all the different spots, and it came back time and time again that the best place was in the right of way. Because there was one owner to deal with, us, the municipality, and to move forward. So we incorporated it within it, and we got it working within our approved standards, and that drawing I just showed you. And the integrated approach, so the time that we took to educate everybody so that they understood what was happening, what to expect once it started to hit the development and engineering processes, really did a lot for us to move through this process in an easier way. So the agreements, the primary form of agreement, we used our MAA. So we used our standard MAA, Municipal Access Agreement, to handle the expectations and requirements that were expected of this. So, and it was informed by the technical analysis, standards and approval processes, what our process approvals were, so special clauses. So we did modify it with special clauses and fees. So we do collect some fees. And the objective of the fees is basically to keep the city whole for the extra work that it takes to manage this system, to host it, and also to protect our rights. And in particular, we took some time, because I'm also the director of asset management. We took some time to ensure that this would work for the long run, because this agreement is a 25-year agreement with extensions for 5 years and then another 5 years. So we had a lot of legal discussions with our staff and the legal staff at Enwave. And we looked at our risk management. So we didn't want to make ourselves the regulator of this system because that is not a role that we're tooled up for. And I think we all know that district energy systems are an unregulated utility in Ontario at this time. They are regulated in other jurisdictions like British Columbia. However, we did not want to be a regulator of this. So we tried a fine line on ensuring that there were homeowner protections. And also that was in Mattamy's interest to ensure that the homeowners were protected, as well as Enwave as the provider, because they want to be successful. So there was a lot of legal finagling that went on to ensure that everybody was satisfied and had their risks appropriately mitigated. We talked a little bit about the stakeholder engagement already, and I will hammer this point home, and I'll use this slide that we put together. Establish an approach to support understanding and expectations to advance the project. We did early engagement and education with all stakeholders to reduce construction conflicts and provide cost-effective installations. We used collaboration and agreements and followed precedents from our own district energy company, Markham District Energy, and our agreements with them, as well as the City of Toronto's experience in working with Enwave. We all know Enwave used to be owned by the City of Toronto. We identified these barriers and challenges to successful approval implementation, and then with the support of the mayor and senior executives, and initial consultations with the province, various industry agencies, Alectra and Enbridge. We were able to gather all the concerns. And so we had a very big tent on this project. We started with a very large stakeholder meeting, some 50 people, where we used to gather as people in the same room at our Pan Am Center. And we had it out. We discussed we laid it out with Enwave and Mattamy, what we were proposing, and then we asked for feedback. What issues do you see? Legal, customer, homeowner agreements, right-of-way, technical, engineering. We ended up with a list of issues probably longer than my arm. And we had, why can't Lisa Prime, sorry. Lisa Prime was our consultant on this, assisting the three parties, Enwave, Mattamy, and the city, and also helped us with the TAF agreement. And congratulations to Lisa. She's now a chief planner at Cambridge. But she was really, really great on this because we captured all of the issues that we had into a large spreadsheet, and then we started working them, methodically working them. Okay, this is the issue. What's the response? Accepted, rejected, questions that we have. Methodically, we worked this through and through, some 50 odd issues that we got to. And that actually formed the basis of many of the issues that we ended up documenting in the municipal access agreement. But it gave everybody comfort. So, and this was preliminary to starting in the planning processes and Mattamy making their planning application. So we set this table with this big tent approach so that everybody understood what to expect, that we were committed to working through their issues, responding to their issues, documenting those issues that they've been solved so that we could move into the planning processes and the engineering processes with a lot of understanding and a lot of comfort. I can't stress how important that is. So on the reflection, the integrated design process, the multiple design options, we were limited by public space, so we had to work in the right of way. The setback refinement, so how far do we set back from each type of infrastructure so that you make sure that if you're constructing one or repairing another, you're not striking it, locates, engineering, all of that's really important. Eventually it got integrated with the existing development process. So we had conditions in the site plan agreements, we had conditions in the subdivision agreements that were all tied to completion of the municipal access agreement and then moving forward. So we did a really good job of bringing that integration there. And that's because we brought everybody in early to help us solve these problems before they actually were problems on an in-flight development application. And if you've ever worked with Mattamy, you know that they like to move quickly. So that setting of the table was super important. All developers really want to move quickly because they want to get their return from the land that they've been investing in. So the MAA was critical. Geo-Exchange eventually just became another utility, working with Enwave, documenting it all and making it happen. We put a lot of resources into this, including my time, Jen Wong's time, and others in the organization, one of our lawyers. And that was, I think, probably one of the secrets of success was that there was a high-level champion within the organization to make it happen. It was me as the Director of Sustainability and Asset Management, but it was, I think, a key piece of success. I know that the folks from Enwave and Mattamy will tell you that. I myself, I felt very tired at the end of the process because it required a lot of effort. There were lots of late nights negotiating with the folks at Enwave and making sure that this moved forward, trying to find the technical solutions, addressing barriers. But personally, I thought this was really important because of the scalability of it. So I went all in on it, and I think the results are worth it. But again, that's another, I think, lesson learned that you should take. Not only do you build a big tent, not only do you lay it down early, set that table so everybody understands, but you do need a high level, executive level champion within your organization to move this through. We did have some natural gas infrastructure come in. There were a couple of reasons that we did that. One is to backstop if there's any challenges with the functionality of this system. That was a requirement by the city. The second is we didn't want to limit consumer choice on cooking or say natural gas fireplaces and things like that. We looked at all, so this second last bullet, and this gets into some information that I'll share that's kind of new. The spectrum of geo-exchange opportunities are based on the densities. What we mean by that, and we learned this from our friends at Mattamy recently, is that they won't be pursuing this system for their next phase of this project. The densities just did not work for a district energy system. I think we all kind of knew that. We hoped that we would make it work. I kind of knew this from the work we do with our friends at Markham District Energy. However, the densities are a little too low. So I want our audience to understand that this was a successful project and that we, laid down a groundwork on how this can happen, the right of way. We also really furthered sustainability considerations within Mattamy. That was one of the things that I heard. But I think that this solution is on a district geo-exchange system or a district system in general is probably not quite right for a lower density development like this. We have to keep our eyes on district energy for higher density, medium to high density developments. And then the final observation, TAF support was critical. They gave us that shot in the arm. They really gave us that early vote of confidence that we could successfully move forward with this, that this was something worth some effort, and they put a lot of money behind it to make it happen for us, and I am grateful for their support and their continued support on this. So our next steps, construction is continuing, and they're anticipating to close the homes and get people into them in 2022. So that's really exciting. So this is going to be up and running probably within the next year. We're gonna, and that's a key thing. I think everybody wanted to see how it would run for the first year or two before actually making leaps to scale it to the next phase. The timing didn't work that Mattamy needs to move to their next phase now, but it doesn't mean that we can't do it in the future, but we're going to certainly keep an eye on applying this for medium to higher density technologies. Mattamy has committed that they will be doing other technologies to achieve probably, not 80% GHG reduction against code, but probably 50 to 60%. And they're certainly going to be looking at the high efficiency envelopes, air source heat pumps, other technologies like that. So the feasibility is continuing for Geo-Exchange in future phases, and we're going to look at it. And it could be district, micro district, or independent. So say one borehole per home. But we'll be working with them on that and continue supporting and trying to push not only Mattamy, but all the development community that's happening in Markham. And I would encourage you to do that too. If you don't build those new assets well now, we're going to be talking about how to retrofit those things in the near future. And that would be a waste of resources. We have enough retrofitting that we have to do in our communities. I think we'll all agree. We're going to continue to share our project results, processes, and lesson learned. This is a good example of that today. I'm coming around the horn on this and almost finishing up. So, and we'll take questions at the end, of course. I think we'll have a good amount of time for discussion. So I got 3 more slides and then we'll get going. But glad to see you on the screen, Gabby. Okay, so did I skip something? No, that was it. Okay, Powerhouse Hybrid. So this is actually a retrofit play. Jen and I like to run a portfolio approach with respect to emissions in Markham. So we have a number of things at play. New development was a very strong focus for us a little while ago. Jen has ran with this one, and I think she's done a great job because having the 2 utilities, Enbridge and Alectra, work together, actually, and you mix us in, so 3 big bureaucracies to try to innovate together was not the easiest thing. The outcome, though, is pretty good in that we retrofit 10 homes in Markham with the Powerhouse hybrid system. And it is a complex thing. And this was with funding from Natural Resources Canada. It's probably not something that we would do again at this scale. However, there are some really interesting outcomes that are coming from this and innovations that CAP might hear about in the near future. But what we did was we integrated this to a virtual power plant. So this plays from the Powerhouse concept that Alectra had already built, in that they had a number of solar PV systems with battery storage installed throughout their service territory when they were power stream. And they allocated about half that battery capacity to the home and half the battery capacity to a virtual power plant. So this, is that virtual power plant on steroids, because not only did it have rooftop solar, battery storage, but it also had a micro combined heat and power system. Of course, there was the level 2 electric vehicle chargers. We had high efficiency boilers. We put in an air handling unit, air source heat pump, and storage tank. So it's kind of all the big pieces of a retrofit or a new build technology that you might put into a home. I think some of the challenges that we saw is that there isn't really a mature kind of control technology. So one consistent vertical stack of supply. So to make everything talk together was one of the technical challenges that we saw. The reduction that we expected to see was 81 tons of GHG by 2030. And again, as I've mentioned, our partners on this were Alectra, Enbridge, Natural Resources Canada as the funding, and Ryerson as the research institute to back it. Our objectives were to improve reliability, provide peace of mind during power outages, reduce electricity bills, reduce GHG emissions. That was really the kind of focus of the algorithm that controlled all the systems, was to keep GHG emissions low, and that's to support clean energy jobs and market transformation. So this is what it looks like in action. You can see we got the solar panels, we got the EV charger, we've got zone heating, we've got a smart meter, we've got hybrid heating and cooling systems, battery storage, all of it working together. There's a really great video that we can share another time on how all this works, but the idea was to empower the households to generate and store clean energy, optimize the electrical and thermal technologies to minimize GHG, and then lead the shift from large centralized power generation to decentralized cleaner generation that of course is more resilient as well. And that's it.
Thanks so much, Graham. That's really helpful on having gotten all that information. And we have lots of
I know it's a lot. I know I may have gone through it quickly.
It's perfect.
I see the chat is busy, so I'm looking forward to a good discussion.
Yeah, no, that definitely, we can start with going with a couple of the questions on this one. So I'm going to start with the first question. In terms of it, so there's the vertical drill holes for the Geo-Exchange, and then there's the main loop that goes through with the pipes going to the to individual homes. How do the individual homes manage how much of the heat exchange actually goes to and from each of the different homes? How is that managed in terms of the overall system? Is it just a consistent flow that then the heat pump deals with the rest?
That's a good question. So you're talking about the flow from the laterals.
Yeah.
I think it will. I'm pretty sure that there would be a pump. It's metered. So each of those, the input incoming line is metered, so they can measure what the thermal energy that's taken from the ambient system is, and that's part of their billing. And it's translated to equivalent natural gas consumption for simple billing purposes. But I'm pretty sure there's a circulation pump that will be in the home that'll draw from that through a meter and then to the heat pump, and the heat pump will either raise the temperature or lower the temperature depending on what the system in the house is calling for. And they put in smart thermostats. I think they may have gone with Ecobee, but that may have changed. But that was the objective.
Okay, perfect. And you mentioned the challenge in the technology with regards to getting all of the different systems. Oh, I'm going to go back to that. We're going to talk about the powerhouse afterwards. So I'm going to leave that on that. I'll come back to that one.
Okay.
Then
I saw someone asked if this could go back up, so I'll put it back up. Yeah. And like Gabby said, we'll circulate this slide deck through Gabby later on.
And you mentioned that you were aiming for kind of being revenue, not revenue neutral, but cost neutral to both the developers as well as to the property owners. And the density plays a role in making that cost effective. And based on this example, at these types of densities, was there a premium? And if so, what was the premium?
So to the homeowner, our objective remained in place that there should not be a premium when you look at the total cost of ownership of the asset compared to, say, a traditional natural gas furnace. So you include in that and the way that district energy work, there's a fixed charge and then there's a variable charge. And the fixed charge is essentially covers your long-term capital. It's an amortization process, if you will. I learned that from my friend Peter Ronson in dealing with Markham's agreements with Markham District Energy. But nonetheless, so the fixed charge and the variable charge together, when you total it up over the 25-year period, our objective was compared to the business as usual business case of a natural gas furnace and air conditioner that's traditionally installed in a lot of homes in Canada. And considering that you'd probably be replacing that equipment at least once or twice in that 25-year period, it should be cost neutral. There should be no premium over that 25-year period for the homeowner. Now, I understand when it all washed out, the developer did have to do a bit of an injection of funds to just make it all whole, make it all work. And that was kind of what stopped them from proceeding for the next phase, is that injection. They don't want to get into that injection again. We were looking at what we could do to find efficiencies in construction and lower the construction costs. So there's still some opportunities, but I think that the bottom line here is that low density development is not necessarily a very good candidate for district energy systems. And I wrestled with whether I would disclose this because it's pretty new information that we got. And, I'm still waiting on a letter from our friends outlining, why and what. But I wanted everyone that's attending today to have these expectation managed, to not go away and think that they can get this happening in their communities, because I think that you're going to find resistance. So I want to be clear, transparent, and disclose the challenges. I still consider this a success. I think we laid a good framework for this. And I'm going to look, with my new colleague, Tony, at what we can do with respect to the slightly higher densities that are going to start coming in Markham and focus on those.
Great, perfect, thanks. And then out of, in terms of it, what would be the density of this community?
This community, maybe Jen can help me with this, but this community is 50% singles, detached singles. There are some semis and there are some back-to-back towns, but it is all low rise.
Okay.
Single family homes for the large part, in a mix of detached and semis.
Okay. And out of curiosity, did you guys do any analysis of, let's just say there was a mid-rise interspersed in with the low rise, whether that would make a big difference in the economics?
No, we didn't do that because the product that Mattamy wanted to offer was pretty clearly set out. What they wanted to build. Though I will say that because we did a master planning exercise with respect to the future urban area and the 4 concessions and the 1,300 hectares of land, there is a variety of densities, including a lot of the higher densities are along our major roads and transit routes, as is good planning practice.
And then for the right of way, is there a fee that is charged? And if so, is it an annual fee, and is it or a one-time fee, and is it paid by Enbridge, or is it paid by the developers?
Okay, so there is yes to all of that. So there's an annual fee that's based on the kilometers of pipe that go into the ground, and that's the linear, not the vertical, because there's a lot more of that. But yeah, there's an annual fee, and that's really the fee that is there to keep us whole with respect to the additional management and administration that's necessary because of the burden of the additional infrastructure that is in there. There's also our regular slate of access fees. So if they need to close the road in order to do some maintenance or service, they have all of the regular fees that all the other utilities have to pay. And they did have to pay an additional upfront legal and engineering fee set because it did take a lot more work than a standard system would.
And then you mentioned about the engagement with Mattamy, and because Mattamy's not the only development in this new development area, out of curiosity, how did this conversation with Mattamy and the advancement that Mattamy is doing influence the other developers in terms of their awareness of other opportunities available to them? Did it help to address some of the barriers or issues that they might have had? And how did it advance the overall conversation about lower?
It pulled them along. We had and we were doing these conversations at the same time. So we were working with Mattamy, and then we had a table with the rest of the developers where we were discussing our community energy plan and what our objectives were for that. And so Mattamy put this tension into the system that pulled them along. Like I'd said, they were somewhat reluctant. There are different businesses. Mattamy is pretty much a nearly fully integrated developer. The others are not necessarily. And so that makes it hard for them to change and adapt because they don't have full control through their value chain. They have contractors and subcontractors. And so the training, the dissemination. So what we ended up with the community energy plan was, like I said, about 8% above code, focused on the building envelope. And then the other piece, and this is probably where Mattamy came in, and this was something that the mayor suggested, was a pilot program. So they've all committed to joining a pilot program where they're going to try new technology, air source heat pumps, triple pane windows, higher levels of insulation. And there's a structure on how that's going to happen. And it's to happen in advance of construction so that they can be applying these to their early builds and ideally doing rolling changes to their construction as they move through their development process.
Okay, great. And then, so out of curiosity, who owns the Geo heat pump inside the home? That's the property owner who owns that, correct?
No, it's actually leased from Enwave, and probably via, I think, Enercare was joined the Brookfield companies, and so they have a. And of course, Enwave was recently sold to Teachers,
So
but nonetheless, there's a little bit of a microcosm of partnerships. Enwave doesn't do, say, residential services or have residential building levels or things like that. So they partnered up with another provider that's going to kind of provide that that service, that key contact, and then I think even the billing is going to end up landing on the Enbridge bill, perhaps. That's still to be firmed up, I believe.
Okay, all right. And then did the system provide domestic hot water as well? Or is that being done through a traditional gas, hot water, a natural gas hot water heater?
There is a natural gas hot water heater. I don't believe it's a tank system. It might be something a little more innovative than that. We had to, because the municipality wanted to have natural gas supply in as a backstop in case anything went wrong, and also to not prevent consumer choice. A load actually for natural gas has to be in the system, in the homes. You can't have a meter and have it not turning. It becomes a safety issue. So they had to engineer in a small load, and they did it with the domestic hot water. The original intent was that there would be a superheater capturing reheat or waste heat off of the heat pump, but because we had to get that in for safety considerations, so there were some compromises. It's not a total, net zero emissions community, but it's damn close, and it's a big step forward, I'll say.
Yeah, right. We'll take what we can get. So now to the powerhouse. Okay. Out of curiosity, another question that always comes up on Geo and building envelope. In terms of the balance, like how far were they able to go with the building envelope efficiency versus the returning, because Geo cost effectiveness is based on using, more energy so that you can reduce the per unit cost and that kind of realm of thermal power, but building envelope reduces that, but it helps with reducing energy costs. So how did that balance kind of come out between the Geo-Exchange system versus the building envelope?
Yeah, so Mattamy built a more efficient home. I'm sitting down. Stand-up desks are good. Mattamy built a higher performing envelope than code, likely higher performing than the 8% that we agreed for performance with the rest of the development community. And that's exactly right. It was, where do you put the capital, the dollars? in order to lower the overall cost. So they went for a higher building performance, and our standard that we agreed to with the CEP allowed them to push that up, and so that their investment in the sizing and capacity of the Geo-Exchange system could be minimized, optimized. So there was an optimization exercise that happened.
Okay, perfect. And then now to the powerhouse, questions on the powerhouse. So what's the typical age of the one of the participating homes in that powerhouse pilot?
Oh, Jen?
Hi, I would say that it ranged. So it wasn't, you know, we weren't looking for pre-1960s or post-1980s. It kind of ranged. And what the deciding factor was the alignment of the house. So this project, because it was a pilot, we were very specific on what we wanted to find in a house. So the alignment of a house, making sure that the roof can actually accommodate rooftop solar was really a key component, as well as a homeowner who was willing to buy an electric vehicle or already had one, and was also willing to remove their infrastructure if they had an electric vehicle and actually test out the infrastructure that we wanted to test out. So those were the major components or requirements that we were looking for from our 10 participants.
All right, thank you.
Thanks,
and
Jen.
then
We divided and conquered on these two projects, if you can't tell.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, just confirming up, there was a question relating to who owns the Geo-Exchange system.
And
whether
I saw that. Hi, Peter.
Okay. All right, perfect. So that would just wanted to kind of highlight that one in the question. And oh, okay. So a question related to the implementation of Mattamy project with regards to skilled trades, or if there's anything kind of, you know, cutting edge work or suppliers that were an issue with regards to the Geo-Exchange system.
I'd say that the unique supplier was, I think it's AECOM, who is doing the geo construction. And so that was one strategic partnership that had to come out of this with respect to Enwave. And I had the pleasure of going on site and talking to the folks who are doing that. And they have a really experienced team with AECOM. Enwave doesn't fool around. They pick very strong partners. They negotiate hard for the best deal for them and their risk mitigation. They take it all very seriously. And so that's a good vote of confidence in my mind for AECOM. And I was impressed with the technologies and the teams that they had in place on site when I went. Very conversant, very safety oriented. So that would be probably one of the key different technology supplies that had to be in there. And then there was also some of the technologies that were used with respect to shaping and connecting all of the pipe, with respect to, like, I learned a lot about piping and right of way doing this project. I'm a building engineer or a building energy person for the most part. But there was a lot of really interesting technology that went in with the Geo-Exchange system. And then of course the heat pump selection, and then making all of that work together. Perfect.
And the last question was just with regards to, for the powerhouse, whether there's any analysis on the cost effectiveness of these retrofits over a total cost of ownership model.
Maybe Jen can add to this, but I think that the package per home was almost $100,000, which is, you know, in my mind, this is a very heavy duty R&D project, very early phase R&D on how to integrate this. It was more how to make it all work and play together than how to scale it. But what we're seeing come out of it is some really interesting ideas from some of the team on hybrid systems and taking pieces of this and really focusing on some of that technology stack, and then how to market that and scale that beyond the community.
And are there plans as part of that powerhouse project to do more developer engagement on the new technologies and building up their understanding and confidence in them?
Certainly, and I think that'll become part of a lot of this is because it was really heavy R&D and it has everything that you could almost want in an efficient home. I think it's good examples of technology that can be used in the pilots that we're going to be undertaking as part of the community energy plan for our North District.
Right.
Jen, I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to add.
Yeah, I'll just add that we are still in the, I guess you'd say the middle of communicating this project, just as we are with the Geo-Exchange project. So more, other than the link that I just sent you, and probably our partners at Enbridge and Alectra that have their own links too, we will be getting more of like the testimonials coming out from our participants. I think that's what a lot of people are looking for, is really understanding from a homeowner standpoint, did this, what was it like? Are you feeling difference in like the comfort of your home? The installations, was it cumbersome? Did you, would you do this again? Those type of questions would be answered. But otherwise, yeah, this was like, we just put everything into these homes, and we're not expecting to promote to homeowners to do everything like we did in the Powerhouse hybrid, but maybe components of it. And I think that's what our messaging will be, if you want to break it down by technologies, you want to get ahead of the curve on doing net zero, retrofits for your home, take it bit by what we did from the Powerhouse hybrid.
Gotcha. Perfect. And then certainly with regards to, I would, certainly some of the Powerhouse components being more cost effective than others, that kind of analysis will come into the pilot. Is that correct in terms of understanding the return on investment of individual measures, or is it only going to be looked at as a package as a whole, just out of curiosity?
That's going to be based on how Alectra and Enbridge actually break down the technology. So we don't own, or we're not the installers of the technologies, of course. Yeah. We're just the land, I guess, participant, if you will.
We facilitated it. We helped gather the homeowners and vet them. Jen spent a lot of time doing that.
You were the matchmakers.
yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Fair way of putting it.
But with that said, there is monitoring reporting as all the technologies have been put in right now. So we do hope to break it down by technologies and maybe report back on each one, or as a package, and see what worked, what didn't work, and the lessons learned from that.
All right.
Yeah, this will be our first winter season, I think, having all the Powerhouse hybrid systems up and running. We got caught up, and I think we were on the fly installing during early COVID days and had to stop it up. And so there were lots of challenges in getting this one happen during COVID. But Alex, hi, nice to see you. I would say that the air source heat pumps are what I'm seeing being picked up and having some legs to run with. Maybe in a hybrid system with an existing natural gas system or things like that. So we'll see where it goes.
Okay, perfect. And then okay, net metering. So I did want to mention there is an ERO posting right now out on net metering, another one that I'm going to be setting up some of the Clean Air Council feedback that we've used in past submissions, where there was where we spoke to net metering and some of the recommendations coming from the municipal network, because that is definitely one of the models they're looking to advance. There's nothing stopping an individual or a property owner for installing PV panels and using that as a net metering framework for their own property, using what they need on site while still sending it to the grid when they're not using it. But what the gap in the market at present is geared towards a third party who would finance this and manage this, and lease, like the homeowner would be given the electricity, while also a lease kind of arrangement, but the third party would be the one that installs all that, pays for the installation, and then the homeowner pays it back over a period of time. So that model isn't yet available here in Ontario in a simplified framework. So that's the ERO posting for that one, which we're going to be fixing on that one. So which the province is hopefully going to be, the province is hopefully going to be fixing that kind of missing gap in the PV market in Ontario at present. So I'm going to be sending that out. I will also send it out to all of you people on the call, just so that you know what the kind of recommendations coming from the CAC is. And in addition, we are going to be collecting input from the CAC network just based on that submission. But I'm gonna, that's another to do on the list. The deadline for that is December 16th. So I will provide information as part of the proceedings for this webinar. And I want to thank Graham and Jen for all your hard work on advancing this initiative. I'm sure it was not an easy one, but thank you for not giving up and herding the cats in all of these. Sorry, no, these are, oh, no, this is a different one for.
I'm just answering that question.
Oh, okay, sorry.
From
sorry.
Joseph.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so no, the net metering is, this doesn't have the Geo-Exchange program in Markham doesn't have PV panels as part of its offering, but we are actually going to be just providing an update for another development that is being advanced using a net metering framework and energy efficiency. It would be from Country Homes, and they're just undertaking all of their feasibility and analysis right now. And then they're going to be coming back to the municipalities and the Clean Air Council network to share what they found in terms of how the design of this, the cost effectiveness, what's the right combination between energy efficiency and renewable generation. And how the grid will be supported in that new development. So that's going to be coming up in early 2022, and we'll send it out to you in the newsletters that go out. But I wanted to thank Graham and I wanted to thank Jen for taking the time to share all of these experiences and lessons learned and the process that you use, because like I mentioned to so many municipal staff, like no, we weren't trained for how to do advance these lower carbon developments, and we need help to kind of figure it all
but
out.
I'll say, and thank you, Gabby, for the opportunity to share the story. But the big tent and barrier reduction approach with an early phase before it gets into real development processes that cook along that your colleagues in your planning and engineering have was super important.
Perfect. That's always good advice. Thing we forget all the time too, right? It always needs to be drilled in there. So thank you so much.
Councilor McAlpine, hello.
So thanks so much for taking the time to share. And I will be sending this out, the proceedings with the recording, as well as the PDF of the presentation and the links that were provided in the chat as well to everybody via email. So thank you again, Graham. Thank you so much, Jen. And it was great to see your faces.
Thanks for having us, Gabby.
Yeah,
Be well,
thank you.
everybody.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for joining. Have a great day.